Hi, it's Jim Posel from Safety Wars. I'll be watching the World Baseball Classic tonight. So I decided to pre-record some stuff. What do we have going on? We think we're watching a baseball game, but what are we watching? We're watching systems under pressure. Human performance and what happens when everything is on the line, because tonight is the World Baseball Classic final game. USA versus Venezuela. What you're really watching with this is the game within the game. Let me tell you something. If you think this is about bats and balls, you're missing it. This is about decision-making under pressure, error recovery, leadership in real time. Sound familiar? It should, because that's every job site you've ever been on. Let's start here. Error is normal. I don't care who you are, whether you're a major league ball player or a brand new hire at your job. Somebody tonight is going to make a mistake. Miss a play, hang a pitch, blow an assignment. It's going to happen. But now, the question is not, will there be error? The question is, what happens next? Does the system absorb it? Or does it cascade? Because that's the difference between a near miss and a disaster. Here's what I want you to watch tonight. Something we call the response loop. 4 steps. Something goes wrong. There's an immediate reaction. There's a team response. And the next execution. A walk, a stolen base, a single, inning explodes, or a walk, double play. Then comes the eventual reset. That is system resilience in real time. Let's talk about the context. The game is in Miami. The crowd, it's going to feel like a home game for Venezuela. Same players, different environment, different behavior. Pitchers rush, hitters get aggressive, everything speeds up for them. What's the context? We know it drives behavior. If you don't understand the environment, you don't understand the outcome. There are 3 moments I want you to watch tonight. Number 1, the first pitch of every at-bat. Strike, control, ball, variability. So when there's a strike, that's control, ball, variability. Number 2, 2 outs. This is where the championships are won. Can you execute what everything says you should? Number 3, bullpen decisions. Leadership under certainty. Too early, you burn your system. Too late, you lose the game. Now here's where the team falls apart. Blame. Pitcher misses. There's frustration. Error in the field. Finger pointing. A bad call. An emotional spiral. Blame fixes nothing. What matters is reset, refocus, and execute. Here's your matchup. You have Team USA, an engineered system deep with MLB players. It's structured, it's controlled, it's a system. You have Venezuela, a variable system, dare I say an underdog. They have the energy, they have the momentum, they have the emotion, but they have variability. And here's the truth. Systems don't fail when things go right. Systems fail when variability spikes. So the winner tonight is simple. Who manages variability better? So when you watch this game, just don't watch the score. Watch the response, watch the leadership, watch the system under stress. Because this isn't just baseball, folks. This is human performance. This is risk. This is reliability. And remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is resilience. Because the system will be tested. It always is. This is Jim Posel, and this is Safety Wars. Play ball. Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Hello. I know that's a little bit of a different intro. Probably not what you were expecting. That's fine. A lot of stuff goes on here at Safety Wars that we're not expecting. Just the way it is. So there were some complaints on some of the other shows out there about, no, I don't want to make this political. We'll just say the way that St. Patrick's Day was addressed by some politicians, especially overseas, like the President of Ireland, right? So, what we're doing is we're going to talk today, right, about, I already talked about the World Baseball Classic. Let's talk about we're going to talk a little bit about St. Patrick today. Really? St. Patrick's? You're going to work this into Safety Wars? Yeah, we're going to work it into Safety Wars. Let's see how it goes with this. Of course, we pre-write. I've been trying to pre-write things because you guys deserve the best here. I try to shoot from the hip on a lot of the stuff. Some of the stuff you got to prepare. So this is our St. Patrick's Day message. St. Patrick, a story of grace, risk, and redemption. Right? So there's a war on for your safety here at Safety Wars, and today we're stepping off the job site into history. But don't get too comfortable, because what we're about to talk about is one of the greatest case studies in human performance, risk, resilience, and transformation ever recorded. What are we talking about? We're talking about St. Patrick. Now, most people think that they know all about St. Patrick. Green beer, parades, shamrocks, maybe a story about snakes. That's not the real story, right? We're talking about what goes on often, right? Especially if you're a new listener here. We talk about what's going on behind the scenes, what the additional information you need. So you're not being manipulated, not being screwed around. And that's what we're here going to talk about. The real story about St. Patrick is about a kidnapped teenager, a slave, a man shaped by isolation, fear, and uncertainty, who will later return to the very place of his suffering, not for revenge, but for mission. We'll let that sink in. At about 16 years old, Patrick was taken from his home in Roman Britain and forced into slavery in Ireland. No safety plan, no rescue system, no controls, just exposure, physical, psychological, and spiritual. From a Safety Wars perspective, all this stuff is just a total system failure. But here's where it gets interesting. In that isolation, Patrick didn't collapse. He didn't check out. He turned inward and upward. He began to pray constantly. He later wrote that he would pray dozens, sometimes hundreds of times a day. Now think about that through a human and organizational performance lens. Error is normal. People drift. People disconnect. Patrick admits he wasn't even that religious before the incident, but under stress, under exposure, under consequence, something changed. He adapted through the power of the Holy Spirit. Not because the system supported him, because faith reshaped him. After about 6 years, he escapes. He makes it home. You would think that's case closed, right? Wrong. Because then comes the calling. He has a vision, the vision of the voices of the Irish people calling him back. Like Jonah being called to Nineveh, except he didn't have to be dragged there by a whale, but by God. Now, from a risk management standpoint, this makes no sense. You don't go back to the hazard. You eliminate exposure. You engineer it out. You put distance between you and the threat, but Patrick doesn't. He goes back. And this is where theology and safety intersect in a very uncomfortable way. Because what Patrick demonstrates is something we don't always like to talk about in safety. Not all risk is meant to be eliminated. Some risk is redeemed. Patrick returns to Ireland as a missionary. Not as a victim, but as a servant. He brings the message of Jesus Christ to a culture that was tribal, dangerous, and completely outside the Roman system. No infrastructure, no compliance framework, no regulatory oversight, just mission. And he succeeds not through force, not through hierarchy, but through relationship, humility, and conviction. He calls himself a sinner, unlearned, weak. Sound familiar? That's the theology of grace. Very much in line with what Martin Luther would later articulate centuries later. That we are saved not by our strength, but by God's grace. Patrick didn't see himself as the hero. He saw himself as the instrument. Now let's talk about one of the most famous teaching tools in history, the shamrock. 3 leaves, 1 plant. Simple, memorable, effective. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The Holy Trinity. From a safety training standpoint, this is gold. He took a complex theological truth, the Holy Trinity, and made it understandable to the workforce, to the people, to the culture he was serving. That's what great communicators do. They just don't deliver information, they translate it. And then there is the story of the snakes. Did he actually drive snakes out of Ireland? Probably not. But symbolically? Absolutely. Because the snakes represent something bigger. Darkness, false belief, chaos. And what Patrick brought was light, truth, and order. Now let's bring this back to our show here, Safety Wars. Patrick's life tells us a few things. First, context drives behavior. A kidnapped teenager becomes a man of faith because of the environment he was placed in. Second, blame fixes nothing. Patrick doesn't spend his life blaming his captors. He moves forward with purpose. Third, learning and adaptation are everything. He didn't bring Roman systems to Ireland. He adapted to the Irish. And fourth, people are not the problem to control. They are the solution to empower. Patrick didn't conquer Ireland. He converted it through trust, through a relationship, and through a message of grace. And here's the biggest takeaway. Sometimes the greatest transformation doesn't come from eliminating risk, but from facing it with purpose. Patrick went back into the hazard. Not because it was safe, but because it was necessary. And in doing so, he changed the nation. That's not just theology. That's leadership. That's resilience. And that is a case study worth remembering.
Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
In an unpredictable world, one voice rises above the chaos. Meet Jim Polzo, a seasoned safety expert who's navigated through some of the most dangerous scenarios, from anthrax, explosive cleanups, disasters, and numerous environmental cleanups, and lived to tell the tale. Now he's bringing his wealth of knowledge, insights, and experiences to you through Safety Wars. From workplace hazards to the hidden dangers in your own home, Jim covers it all with his engaging storytelling. Safety Wars isn't just a podcast, it's your guide to a safer world. Join Jim Pozo and become part of the Safety Wars revolution. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts and videos. Safety Wars. Your safety is our mission.
Have you listened or watched the Safety War show? It does stream live on the radio and on the streamer-emers that we have. So if you have not taken a listen to Jim Bolzel and what the hell he's doing every evening with Safety Wars, I would strongly encourage you to take a view or take a listen, whichever option is available for you, and take a listen to what the hell he has going on. It will take some deep dives and some information that you might be interested in.
This is gonna blow your mind. There's a new daytime talk show on your local cable access station. What happens when safety, scandal, and heartbreak collide? Welcome to Safety Wars, the talk show. Today's episode is a doozy. Imagine confronting your unsafe supervisor who just happens to be your ex-wife's new hubby. Talk about a powder keg. But wait, there's more. We've got an exclusive interview with a corporate exec who's taken out life insurance policies on his riskiest workers, hoping to cash in on a deadly mishap. Yup, you heard that right. It's a real-life plot twist you can't make up. Tune in as Jim Posel, CSP, our very own Jerry Springer of safety, dives deep into this explosive confrontation. Sparks will fly and secrets will be exposed. Catch the full episode on Safety Wars on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Don't miss out on the drama that could save your life. Like and share now, and stay safe, folks.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Posel with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
You are listening to Safety Wars. Tomorrow's Safety Today.
Hey everybody, it's me. I'm back again. Yes, we had a little bit of a diversion there, but it applies. We're going to be doing stuff like this more often, I hope. Here, as we progress and as we move along. U.S. Department of Labor launches OSHA Safety Champions program to advance workplace safety. Right. In an effort to promote workplace safety, U.S. Department of Labor's OSHA today announced the launch of its Safety Champions program, a new cooperative initiative designed to help employers develop and implement effective safety and health programs. The Safety Champions program meets businesses where they are on their pathway to safety and health success and encourages them to take proactive steps with the philosophy of continuous improvement to prevent workplace injuries, illnesses, and fatalities. Department of Labor's new Safety Champions program exemplifies the Trump administration commitment to supporting and empowering job creators, said U.S. Secretary of Labor Lori Chavez-Reimer. By providing employers with these resources, we are putting American workers first and keeping them healthy and safe on the job. The program has 3 progressive steps: introductory, intermediate, and advanced, with each aligned with OSHA's recommended practices for safety and health programs. The tiered structure allows employers to build their safety and health programs over time and adopt best practices tailored to their needs and operations. Participants can choose to work independently or collaborate with special government employees, individuals with safety and health experience who work alongside OSHA to provide guidance and technical assistance. The Safety Champions program emphasizes 7 elements that are essential for effective safety and health programs: management leadership, worker participation, hazard ID, prevention and control, education and training, program evaluation, communication. So they have a link here. Let's see. Do they have a link? Yes. They give you a link to sign up for their program. I want to become a safety champion to embark on the pathway to safety and health success. So please sign up. Let's see here. No. No, that's my. Let's see. Tools. Explore these tools to guide you through the Champions program. And here you have the OSHA instruction, policy and procedures on this. Right? I will do a further deep dive later on this stuff. Social media toolkit. Let's see what that is. Yeah, you'll be seeing this more and more lately with this stuff, right? We'll see. We'll go through this. This sounds like something we need to do a deep dive on with that. I don't know. We'll take a look at it. I tell you what, if you are in 30 hour, if you're in outreach training period, probably something you need to look at. U.S. Department of Labor cites Midwest Commercial Bakery for repeat serious safety violations following an employee injury. We discussed this injury before. U.S. Department of Labor has cited a Midwest Commercial Bakery for repeatedly exposing employees to safety hazards after workers suffered a broken arm in September 2025 when clearing dough from a machine while working on a production line. The department's OSHA cited the baker with repeat violations for lack of lockout-tagout training, 1910-147, failing to lock out a machine during servicing, and other hazards related to unguarded machines. The agency also cited the employer for failing to train employees in electrical work, implement safety-related work practices, and use personal protective equipment when performing electrical work. They were cited for 3 repeat and 3 series violations, with proposed penalties totaling $326,000. We'll update you. You know, they don't have the detailed press releases with this stuff anymore. Not like with Biden, where they would give you the actual citations. So we're doing the best we can. We got to wait for that. U.S. Department of Labor launches data visualization tool. I have some comments on this for union reporting forms, providing valuable insight on union spending. Most significant update to Form LM2 disclosure in over 20 years. The Department of Labor's Office of Labor Management Standards today announced the launch of a data visualization tool designed to provide union members with a simple, straightforward way to see their union dues are spent. The new data visualization tool, the most significant update to Form LM2 disclosures since OLMS started posting filings online over 20 years ago. Takes information reported by unions on the Form LM2, which ran hundreds of pages and displays an interactive graphs, charts, searchable tables, etc. Right, so that's right. Union members are required to earn their paychecks and contribute to their union dues. They shouldn't have to work hard to understand how those dues are being spent, said Secretary of Labor Lori Chavez DeRemer. This update is just one of many changes the Department of Labor is making to serve the American worker more efficiently and effectively under President Trump's leadership. Under the Labor Management Reporting and Disclosure Act, certain unions are required to annually file the Form LM2 reporting their assets, liabilities, receipts, and disbursements. This reporting promotes transparency and helps ensure union members are better informed about their union's financial conditions and operations. Right, and let's see. I'm going to click on some of these. What do we get? What do we get? What do we get? So this is for the, I'm just picking one out here. The Machinist AFL-CIO out of Louisville, Kentucky. Right. Receipts, $106,000. Right. Hold on. This just switched on me. All right. Here we go. Lodge 30, Louisville, Kentucky. Members 345. collected $106,649,000. Disbursement, I guess that's how much money they're spending on stuff. $91,039. Assets. Liabilities. Does union have a PAC? Was union audited? Loss of union funding? No. So this gives you an idea. Now, the reality here is this. I've been working with union members for 33 years. My family are blue collar. I'm like the only person who was never in a union in my family, in my immediate family, right? And I can tell you, how many union meetings do you think these folks go to? Not too many. I know my father, working for Western Electric in Kearney, which was the largest employer in the state of New Jersey for many years, they would have the union meetings during work. How's that? So that was back in the day. That's not the way it happens now, because the company had their own, not the company, but the facility had the union was like only representative of that facility. That's my understanding. And they had, nobody. So what happens is people don't go to the union meetings. They don't know what's going on often. And I encourage you to go to your union meetings. So this is another tool to figure out, well, maybe they're looking at people to compare. Well, this is what the union is saying. This is what their paperwork is saying. Sort of like, but, as we all know, people never lie on their tax forms. That doesn't happen. Or IRS filings. Who would do such a thing, right? The United States announced a successful resolution of rapid response labor mechanism. I'm not sure this. Anyway, this is, let me just skip back. Yeah, forgot to share this. This is basically what the form looks like when you scan in on it. And you pick out, I guess, who you're dealing with here, right? The transit union has over $1 million in it. Wow. But anyway, all right. United States announced a successful resolution rapid response labor mechanism matter at ThyssenKrupp Springs and Stabilizers, New Mexico. Yes, I have a dog next door. I was in a little bit of a war with the people next door with their dogs, so I got my Bluetooth speaker right in the against the wall there, and I'm giving them the barking dog, right? Bust their chops a little bit. Actions taken by the facility to address the yeah, I know, I like to have fun, a little bit of fun. Actions taken by the facility. So basically, here we go. The United States has resumed liquidation of tariffs on goods from the ThyssenKrupp facility, which manufactures automotive suspension components. Actions taken by the facility to address the matter. Doesn't say really what the matter is here. Reinstating 2 workers under the same terms and conditions held before they were dismissed in retaliation for union activity, and issuing full payment of back pay and benefits. Number 2, signing an agreement with La Liga Sindical Obrera Mexicana, an independent union that establishes a facility protocol, and adopting, disseminating, and implementing a neutrality statement and company guidelines on freedom of association and collective bargaining, including a zero-tolerance policy for violations, training all company personnel on the guidelines and neutrality commitments. Actions taken by the government of Mexico to address the matter include delivering in-person training for all company personnel on freedom of association and collective bargaining, and monitoring the facility and engaging with workers and company through its review period. And here's the whole background here. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but basically preventing people from joining a union in one way or another, it appears to be. U.S. Department of Labor to host educational seminar for agricultural industry employers, workers, and other stakeholders. U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division will hold a hybrid person and virtual agricultural seminar to provide guidance on federal laws and governing in the agricultural industry. Right? The division will join other federal agencies to discuss key agricultural labor topics. Participating federal agencies include Office of Foreign Labor Certification, OSHA, etc. And we're going to go to a commercial break and a new thing here. Let's see if it actually works, is we're going to be talking about the news, going back to some of that here in a minute. God willing, I can bring it up. It's going to work. Wow, we're going to be positive here. It's going to work. It's going to work. We're going to have FSN News here. So, all right. So, okay, bear with me here.
From the front lines of the safety war, it's Safety Wars with your host, Jim Posel on Safety FM. Get ready to face the harsh reality.
Is your safety training old, stale, and hackneyed? Is your safety trainer still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety? How about safety training that actually addresses your hazards in your workplaces and is not standardized baloney from 25 years ago? Contact the Safety Wars team at safetywars.com or call Jim Posel at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you're receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces.
Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. The director of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, has abruptly resigned, saying he cannot in good conscience back the Trump administration's war in Iran. The former Iraqi war veteran and Trump supporter says Iran posed no imminent threat when the U.S. attacked. Tony Waterman has more from Washington.
In his resignation letter, Joe Kent says it's clear that the U.S. started the war in Iran because of pressure from Israel. He accuses high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media of deploying a misinformation campaign that deceived the president into believing Iran posed an imminent threat and that there was a clear path to a swift victory, calling it a lie. President Trump, who appointed Kent to his post, says he always thought Kent was weak on security and that it's probably better that he quit if he thinks Iran doesn't pose a threat to the U.S. Tony Waterman, Washington.
Oil prices remain volatile amid the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. It's forcing up motoring and flying costs with no immediate end in sight. Here's Nick Harper in Washington.
Another rollercoaster day for oil prices on Tuesday, jumping around 1 to 3% during the day, largely driven by Donald Trump's words and statements on social media. After he received no support to his idea of creating a coalition of countries to police the Strait of Hormuz and let oil tankers through, he said that the US didn't need the help of anyone. But that hasn't reassured oil markets. And with the price for motorists rising 27% since the start of the conflict, and with airlines saying that jet fuel costs will be jumping dramatically for flyers, many Americans are worried about the cost of travelling on roads and in the air.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Britain visiting Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The two leaders are expected to agree on a new defence partnership focused on producing low-cost attack drones and boosting support for Ukraine in its war with Russia. Lara Bentley reports from London.
The UK government says the deal will bring together Ukrainian expertise and the UK's industrial base to develop drone interception systems. Starmer says the conflict in the Middle East, which is now in its third week, has magnified the need for stronger defence, calling it central to both national and economic security. He added that closer cooperation with Ukraine would help counter Russian attacks and better secure the UK and its allies from future threats. Zelensky's visit comes as he tours European capitals seeking to strengthen defence ties. He said on Monday that the key to peace is to increase pressure on Russia.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, continuing our focus this week on various aspects of the US and Israeli war on Iran, and today we're going to look at the possible impacts on the country's extraordinary array of historic cultural sites. Already scores of museums and palaces have been damaged in the conflict, and both Iran and Lebanon are now urging UNESCO to add more sites to an official list of properties that are provided to all parties in the conflict.
Protection of cultural property goes back to Sun Shao in 6th century BC China, who argues destroying the heritage of your enemy is actually creating the first reason for the next conflict.
That's Professor Peter Stone, the UNESCO Chair in Cultural Property Protection at the University of Newcastle.
I'm very worried. There is no, I think, intent on the American side, certainly, to destroy any of the heritage, but that heritage is still getting damaged by what is usually known as collateral damage. So they're firing at something else, but the knock-on effect is that it damages heritage which is close by.
Among those sites already damaged, the country's oldest mosque in Isfahan and buildings close to prehistoric caves that provide evidence of human life dating back to 63,000 years BC. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. The director of the US National Counter-Terrorism Center, Joe Kent, has abruptly resigned, saying he cannot in good conscience back the Trump administration's war in Iran. Oil prices remain volatile amid the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, forcing up motoring and flying costs. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky's in Britain visiting Prime Minister Keir Starmer. They're expected to agree a new defence partnership. And that's the latest feature story news. Kate Fisher reporting.
Yeah, so that's going to be we used to have it back when, I at one time tried to do 5 shows a week and it just wasn't working out. We'll just leave it at that. So we're going to continue, do this. I don't know. No, we're always changing, always evolving here. So we're going to have 3 case studies at the end of this program with this, and we've been working on a lot of videos and case studies there, taking real incidents and fictionalizing them. Pardon me. Whoa, hiccups. So we do not... No, I haven't been drinking for St. Patrick's Day. No, we don't. No, I don't do that anymore. I don't do it any less. No, I'm only joking. I don't do that anymore. Never drank on the air. No, so we're working to fictionalize a lot of case studies here. We're working on additional training programs for some of our customers, and you'll hear more about that very shortly. So for Safety Wars, happy thanks. There I am. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Where's my head today? And we will, I'll see you tomorrow, God willing.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
In July 2025, a petroleum tank services contractor was performing maintenance on a fuel storage tank at a facility in Lake Worth, Florida. The job involved entering the tank to conduct cleaning and inspection activities. During the operation, a worker entered the confined space and was exposed to high concentrations of hazardous vapors, including benzene and toluene. The worker later died from the exposure. Following an investigation, the U.S. Department of Labor cited the contractor for exposing workers to chemical and respiratory hazards associated with entering the tank. The contractor had been hired to perform fuel tank cleaning, interior inspection, removal of residue from the tank floor, preparation for future fuel storage. The work required entry into a confined space that previously contained petroleum products. Such spaces can contain toxic vapors, oxygen-deficient atmospheres, flammable atmospheres. Probable sequence of events: training reconstruction. The contractor arrived at the facility to begin tank maintenance. The tank had previously contained petroleum products containing benzene and toluene residues. Workers began preparing the tank for entry. Atmospheric conditions inside the tank were not adequately controlled or monitored. A worker entered the tank to begin cleaning operations. Toxic vapors accumulated in the confined space. The worker experienced exposure to high concentrations of hydrocarbons. Emergency response occurred after the worker became incapacitated. The worker later succumbed to the exposure. Immediate causes. The immediate causes of the incident included entry into a hazardous confined space, exposure to toxic chemical vapors, lack of effective respiratory protection and atmospheric control. Petroleum tanks that previously stored fuel products can contain residual volatile organic compounds, including benzene and toluene, which can be rapidly harmful at high concentrations. Root causes. 1. Failure to recognize chemical exposure. Hazards. The work involved a tank previously used for fuel storage. Such tanks frequently contain benzene, toluene, hydrocarbon vapors. Proper hazard assessment should have identified the potential for toxic exposure before entry. 2. Inadequate confined space controls. Effective confined space entry programs typically require atmospheric testing, ventilation entry permits, rescue planning, respiratory protection. Failure to implement these controls can allow toxic concentrations to accumulate. Three, inadequate hazard communication. Workers may not have been fully informed of the specific chemical hazards present in the tank. Understanding exposure risks is essential for safe entry. 4. Organizational safety management failures. The incident reflects deeper systemic issues, including insufficient safety planning, lack of enforcement of confined space procedures, failure to anticipate exposure hazards. Contributing factors. Several conditions may have contributed to the fatal exposure: residual petroleum vapors in the tank, inadequate ventilation of the confined space, absence of continuous atmospheric monitoring, inadequate respiratory protection, lack of trained standby attendants. Each factor increased the likelihood of a catastrophic exposure event. Human and Organizational Performance (HOP) analysis. This incident illustrates several key HOP principles. Error is normal. Workers operate in complex environments and can make mistakes. Safety systems must be designed to anticipate and tolerate human error. In this case, entry into a hazardous atmosphere should have been prevented by engineering controls and monitoring systems, not by relying solely on worker judgment. Blame fixes nothing. It may be tempting to focus on the worker who entered the tank. However, the deeper issue was system design. If a hazardous atmosphere was possible, the system should have included ventilation systems, continuous monitoring, entry controls. Learning requires psychological safety. Workers must feel comfortable raising safety concerns. If workers feel pressured to complete tasks quickly, they may hesitate to question unsafe conditions. Context drives behavior. Production schedules and contract deadlines often influence worker behavior. When time pressure increases, workers may take shortcuts to complete tasks quickly. Systems must be designed for failure. Confined space hazards are well understood in industry. Multiple safety barriers should exist to prevent exposure. Ventilation permits.
Rescue procedures.
When these layers fail simultaneously, catastrophic incidents can occur. Corrective actions. Several controls could have prevented the fatality. Engineering controls. Forced ventilation of tanks prior to entry. Continuous atmospheric monitoring. Gas detection alarms. Administrative controls. Confined space entry permits, hazard assessments before entry, verification of atmospheric conditions.
Confined space entry training, confined space entry training, hazard communication training, emergency response procedures.
One, confined spaces can become deadly environments within seconds. 2, chemical hazards inside tanks are often invisible and odorless. 3, safety programs must assume that human error will occur. 4, effective safety systems rely on multiple layers of protection. 5, organizational culture plays a major role in whether hazards are controlled. In a busy commercial bakery, thousands of loaves of bread move through production every hour. Mixers churn, conveyors carry dough. Ovens run continuously. Most days the system works exactly as designed. But sometimes, it only takes 5 minutes for a routine task to turn into a life-changing injury. In September of 2025, a worker on a production line noticed dough building up inside a machine. This buildup was common. It slowed the production process and occasionally needed to be cleared. The worker made a decision that had been made many times before. Instead of shutting down and locking out the equipment, he attempted to remove the dough while the machine remained energized. Moments later, the worker's arm became caught in the moving mechanism. The result, a severe arm injury and broken bones. OSHA investigators later determined that the employer had failed to implement proper lockout-tagout procedures and training, among other safety violations. From the outside, it may seem like a simple mistake, but workplace accidents rarely happen because of one bad decision. Instead, they occur when multiple weaknesses in the system line up at the same time. Let's look deeper. Graphics appear listing violations. These violations led OSHA to cite the company for repeat and serious safety violations, with proposed penalties exceeding $300,000. But citations only tell part of the story. This incident reveals several common human and organizational performance failures. When dough built up in the machine, workers often cleared it quickly so production wouldn't stop. Over time, what began as an exception became routine behavior. No one expected the machine to start at the exact wrong moment, until it did. Commercial bakeries operate on tight schedules. Every minute the line stops costs money. Workers sometimes learn, without anyone saying it directly, that speed matters more than procedure. Lockout-tagout procedures are among the most important safety rules in manufacturing. But if workers are not properly trained, or if the procedures are complicated, workers may find shortcuts. Safety systems must assume people will make mistakes. If clearing dough from the machine was a known task, the system should have been designed so it could only occur when the equipment was fully de-energized. The root cause was not just a worker reaching into a machine. The real issue was a system that allowed that decision to happen. The workplace relied on workers to always follow procedures perfectly, instead of designing the system to make unsafe actions impossible. Several simple controls could have prevented the incident. Proper lockout-tagout training, strict enforcement of energy isolation procedures, machine designs that prevent access while running, supervisory verification of servicing procedures, a safety culture that rewards stopping the line when necessary. Machines move fast. Human bodies do not. Every year, thousands of workers suffer serious injuries from unguarded or energized machinery. And almost every time, the accident was predictable. Safety is not about blaming workers. It is about designing systems that protect workers when things go wrong. Because in the real world, things always go wrong eventually. The question is whether the system is ready for it. Southeastern Transmission Services prided itself on speed. The company operated across Florida, sudden storms and a demanding grid. Their crews were experts at replacing utility poles with impressive efficiency. Staying ahead of schedule was the key to securing future contracts. On paper, their safety program was robust. Pre-job briefings, minimum approach distances, clear stop work authority. But in the field, the unwritten rule was different. The rhythm of the work, pressure from dispatch, praise from management, all pointed to one primary value: speed. A sweltering August morning, a 4-person crew arrived to replace an aging wooden utility pole. Digger Derrick truck at the site. Trusted and known for getting things done. Luis, the journeyman lineman. Caleb, the apprentice, 8 months on the job. Jordan, the ground technician, looming above a 69 kilovolt transmission line, nearby hospital. Reason the line stayed energized. The crew gathered for their morning briefing. The conversation was brief, maybe 2 minutes. They talked about the rising heat and getting the job done quickly before the afternoon sun. The energized 69 kilovolt line was mentioned, but only in passing. Rick's instruction? Just keep it away from that line. No one pulled out a calculator to check minimum approach distance. No one was formally assigned as a dedicated spotter. No detailed discussion of the lift plan or contingencies. This was not unusual. It was how they often worked. Countless similar pole replacements. No incident. That history created a powerful sense of normalcy. Each completed job reinforced the belief that their methods were safe enough. The absence of failure was mistaken for the presence of safety. The work began smoothly. The team operated like a well-oiled machine. Each member fell into their familiar roles to remove the old, weathered pole. Next, they prepared to set the new, much longer replacement pole using the powerful digger Derrick. Caleb operated the winch, carefully hoisting the massive wooden column into a vertical position. Rick positioned himself at the base, ready to guide it into the freshly dug hole. Luis stood nearby, preparing the guy wires that would secure the pole once it was in place. Their focus was divided, each person concentrating on their specific piece of the complex puzzle. No single pair of eyes was dedicated solely to the most critical variable: the space between the pole and the live wire above. Just as the pole reached its full vertical height, a sudden gust of wind swept across the site. It was not a violent gale, just a common Florida breeze, but it was enough. The top of the long pole swayed, drifting slowly but surely toward the energized conductor. In that critical moment, the crew's attention was fractured. Rick was focused downward, wrestling with the heavy base. Luis was looking at the anchor points for the wires. Caleb was watching the winch drum. The slow, silent drift of the pole top into the electrical danger zone went completely unnoticed. The system had no dedicated observer, and in that moment of distributed focus, no one was looking up. The instant the wooden pole made contact with the 69 kilovolt line, the laws of physics took over with brutal unforgiveness. The pole, damp with the region's humidity, became a conduit for a massive electrical current. He was electrocuted instantly. The current traveled through the equipment, violently shocking Luis and Caleb and throwing them several feet away from the truck. Jordan, the ground technician, was the only one untouched. In a state of shock, he scrambled for his phone and dialed 911, his voice trembling as he tried to explain the unfolding horror. When the paramedics arrived, there was nothing they could do for Rick. He was pronounced dead at the scene. This was not a story of a single catastrophic mistake made by one individual. It was the tragic, predictable outcome of a system that had slowly eroded its own defenses. The pressure for production, the normalization of risk, the lack of a designated observer, the absence of proximity checks, and the failure to conduct a formal engineering review all converged in that single, fatal moment. The event was not an anomaly. It was the system functioning exactly as it had been shaped to function, where small efficiencies had gradually, and invisibly, traded away safety margins. To understand this tragedy, one must look past the actions of the crew and examine the environment the company had created. The organization's culture relied implicitly on the idea of perfect human performance. It assumed that experienced workers like Rick would always make the right call, even when tired, rushed, or distracted. The safety system was brittle, lacking layers of defense. There were no engineering controls in place, proximity alarms on the derrick boom, high-visibility physical markers to delineate the no-go zone under the power line. Safety depended entirely on workers remembering and following rules, a strategy that is destined to fail. The pre-job briefing stands out as a critical point of failure. It had become a hollow ritual, a box to be checked rather than a genuine opportunity to identify and mitigate hazards. Subtle and not-so-subtle cues prioritize schedule, especially with hurricane season looming, reshaping how work was done. This accumulation of small risks is how systems drift into failure. An investigation revealed a report 2 weeks earlier. Energized lines felt too close. It was filed away. No engineer dispatched. No safety alert issued. This fear of speaking up creates a culture of silence where vital information is suppressed. Human error is inevitable. People get distracted, misjudge distances, and forget things under pressure. Blaming Rick accomplishes nothing and ignores the systemic issues that set him up for failure. The system lacked the resilience to absorb a simple human mistake. Production focus blinded the organization to rising risk, making a tragedy like this not just possible, but probable. The most effective solutions are engineering controls. They design the hazard out of the process. Installing proximity alarms on derrick trucks, alarms that sound as the boom nears power lines. Placing brightly colored physical clearance markers on the ground, unmissable visual cues of the danger zone. Mandatory pre-lift engineering review for any job under an energized line. Implement robust administrative controls that build layers of defense. Every lift near an energized line requires a designated clearance observer. The observer's only job: watch the gap between equipment and the hazard, with full authority to stop work immediately. Transform the pre-job briefing with a simple, mandatory electrical hazard checklist. Verbally confirm the line's voltage. Calculate the minimum approach distance. Identify escape paths. Tie incentives and recognition to demonstrated safe work practices, not just speed. Training must evolve beyond rules. Include education on human factors, stress, fatigue, pressure. Train leaders to actively seek and listen to near-miss reports and worker concerns. Build an open, just culture where employees can report problems or stop work without fear. This turns near misses into valuable lessons that prevent fatalities. Safety isn't about demanding perfection from people. It's about designing resilient systems that anticipate and forgive human error. A strong safety culture assumes mistakes will happen and builds defenses so mistakes don't become catastrophes. Build layers of protection, engineering controls, mandatory checks, a culture of trust. Then one small slip, one moment of distraction, or one gust of wind no longer has the power to end a life. Design for failure. Protect people. Deliver the work safely.